What's going on, everybody? It's Dwayne, back again for another video, back again for another reaction. And today is another great day. Do you know why? Because we're doing a video about Sweden. I'm going to learn more about Sweden. And today is 19 weird things Swedish people do. Okay, so don't shoot the messenger. Hopefully she is Swedish and hopefully she knows the weird things that you guys do that we might think, people that are not from Sweden might think are weird. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this reaction. Let's go.
Here are some of my favorite Swedish traditions that I think everyone in the whole entire world should do. So let's get started. We cut our pizza with scissors. This is also a minimalist hack because you no longer need to use a silly pizza cutter that you literally cannot use for anything. Instead, just use your kitchen scissors to cut pizza. Cutting pizza.
That's not weird. You cut your pizza with scissors. I have done that before, and it's actually a more efficient way of cutting your pizza up.
It is such an easy and fun way to
That's not
slice
weird.
pizza.
It's not
One
weird.
of my favorite hacks for a happy marriage and a Swedish tradition that I grew up with is to have separate duvets. Having separate duvets makes so much more sense. It is so much more.
Is that a Swedish thing? A separate duvet for your significant other, so that, do you know what I could do with that? Because my partner keeps on pulling the sheets off me, so tug of war. So maybe that's actually a really good idea. But is that a Swedish thing? Do all Swedish people have separate duvets? Yeah.
More comfortable. You never have to fight with your partner over a blanket, and it just makes a world of difference. If you have one duvet, it's big and bulky and it's crazy. Just try 2 duvets and see if it makes you feel any better. Speaking of duvets and bedding, the next thing that is really important that you should try, that we all do in Sweden, is that we have a duvet cover and a duvet inner and a sheet to make our bed. We don't have any top sheets, we don't have any blankets. That is absolutely disgusting.
What?
Sorry, but it is because you don't really wash them as often. You need to have a duvet if it's cold in your country, and you need to put the duvet inside of the duvet cover.
Yeah.
And you wash the duvet cover weekly. And
yeah. That's normal. That's normal. I think it's normal. What countries? Maybe in America, do you do things different? Maybe Americans do things differently. Maybe that's a European thing because yeah, you need a duvet. You need a duvet cover. You take off the duvet cover and wash it, maybe weekly, or depends how cleanly you are. And you have pillows and you have pillow covers. No, sorry. Yeah, that's right. That's normal.
have a very clean bed. When I first came to New Zealand, I was taught about the idea of a top sheet, and you sort of put the duvet on top, but you never really encase it. But that means that when you move around throughout the bed, your body will touch the duvet inner, and you simply cannot wash that once a week because it doesn't last as long.
So she lives in New Zealand.
So absolutely, if you have a duvet inner and it's cold in your country, put a duvet outer on it, and in the summer when it's too warm, you just put the duvet inner away and you just sleep with the duvet outer blanket.
That must be European.
One of my favorite Swedish sayings is something like, there is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. Very literal and very Swedish, but as a child this was normally printed on our weekly mailer at kindergarten.
Det finns inget dåligt väder. Maybe I should learn Swedish. Maybe that's going to be my next video, me learning Swedish.
Or at school, which basically meant for our parents to remember to put proper clothing on us because we would be outside all day no matter the weather. I think most people these days tend to stay inside when it's bad weather outside instead of just going out there, but by putting on proper clothing, it makes it so much easier to be outside in all weathers, and it's so much better for your health to be outside and breathe in the microbiome rather than just staying inside and watching TV. Another Swedish health hack for you guys. One of the things that I didn't think was weird, but that became obvious to me the moment I moved abroad, was the fact that we don't talk about race. The first time I heard the word Caucasian, I was 20 and living in Japan, and before that I had never heard any of these words, and it's just not something we talk about. Which brings me on to the next point, is that you never have to disclose this information if you, for example, go to the bank or go...
So, the bank does not ask for your ethnicity? I'm not sure if they ask for my ethnicity in England. But no, I think it's very much a very far Western phenomena, especially the United States are quite obsessed with race. Sorry to say that, United States. If there's anyone that's from the US and they're watching this video, they're subscribed, I'm sorry. Your country is very obsessed with race. England and United Kingdom, because we follow a lot of American culture, we're also kind of not as we're nowhere near as bad as America, but we're also a bit too race focused. So I can imagine in like the more east you go, the less that's kind of a thing, which I much prefer. I much prefer being an individual. I know that I am a person of color. I am black, but I also am an individual. I'm very different from other black people. Like everyone's different. Everyone's an individual. So yeah, I like that other countries don't focus on that.
Brings me on to the next point is that you never have to disclose this information if you, for example, go to the bank or going to the university.
They
And that
don't have to
information
do
is
that in the UK.
absolutely not necessary for the bank to know
No.
when I'm opening my bank account. And frankly, it's ridiculous. So do what the Swedish people do, I guess. Whilst we're speaking about politically sensitive subjects, let's speak about children. In Sweden, we treat our children with respect and we treat them as
And
already
so you
humans, which is
should.
something I really, really enjoy and I think everyone should do. Kids don't have to address older people in a certain way. Kids don't really have to act in a certain way. Kids are really allowed to be kids, which means they're allowed to make mistakes. They're allowed to be upset. They don't have to hug someone if they don't want to. They don't have to kiss someone if they don't want to. Just completely reasonable things that I think every country should adopt. Kids are the best thing in the world, so I absolutely think we should treat kids with the utmost respect. Now, this one, I don't know if it's for all of Sweden, but it's definitely something I've experienced a lot of times. But that is people, when I get invited to dinner parties, people ask me, is there something you don't eat? My goodness, this has saved so much trouble having a dinner party or going to a dinner party. I normally tell my best friend when I go to dinners at hers that I don't eat coriander or cilantro.
Is that a weird thing? Is that a Swedish? I don't think it's a Swedish thing. I think that's just courteous to ask if we do that all the time. Like if someone comes to our house for dinner, I'd be like, there's something you don't eat, because the worst thing is someone coming to your house for dinner or for lunch or whatever, and they sit down and you serve a dish or an array of dishes, and they're like, oh my god, I'm allergic to this, or I can't eat this, or I don't like this. You want to cater to the people coming to your house. You want them to have a good time, so you're going to choose something that they like. So I think that's just courteous. It's just nice to ask people before they come, do you eat that?
Because I really, really don't like it. And it makes it a lot easier. One of the most important Swedish traditions is being whole and clean. Now, what does
that mean?
this mean? This is a deeply rooted tradition that goes so far back in Swedish history, but ultimately it means to always present yourself as best as you possibly can. Every time we had friends over, my family would just massively clean the entire house, not because it was necessarily dirty, but it's so important to uphold the standard of being whole and clean.
Well, my family are like that. It's been, we call it being house proud, being proud of where you live and where you present. You need to have pride within yourself to make sure, that your house is clean. I would not let someone come over until I've cleaned it. Even if the house was clean anyways, we would clean the house before anyone would come round, because that's just how we are. Like, I think I just think everyone should be like that. I don't think that's maybe just a Swedish thing. I think everyone should be like that
in Swedish society. Another thing that I think is crazy that other countries have and that we don't have is that we don't really use the expression from scratch. Growing up, I didn't know that you could buy cake mixes. I had only seen it on TV. I had never really heard of it. I didn't know you could buy any sort of pre-made food or something that we call halvfabrikat, which technically means half-processed foods. Of course, this might differ a little bit, but in general, we don't say that we make things from scratch in Sweden. If you make a cake, you will make it from scratch.
Okay, that's just standard.
There's no other way to make a cake. You either buy it from the bakery or you make it from scratch. And I think that's also one of the reasons why we are quite a healthy country. One of the best Swedish cultural traditions that you've probably already heard about is fika. A fika is when you have a coffee, normally, or a tea, with a sweet treat, and you normally have it in the afternoon, but you can actually have it whenever. And this is one of the most common things we do when we go on dates or meet up with our friends. It's so cozy, it's really fun, but I also really like that it's one of the few things in Sweden where you can date someone or meet someone without drinking alcohol. Now, fika means different things in different languages, especially in Italian, so I would use it with caution and use it only when you're in Sweden. Going back to childcare, another thing that I really appreciate about Swedish culture that you should try if you have children is co-sleeping. My parents co-slept with
Co-sleeping.
me and my brother. Everyone I know, I think, co-slept. My sister co-slept with me or with her parents when she was with them. And I've never ever had any issues, heard any issues, or hear anyone talk badly about co-sleeping. Co-sleeping with your baby makes so much more sense because you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night and go into another room. Also, your baby's brain is not developed enough to know that you're
Sleeping, also having a child in the bed and sleeping with you. Yeah, that, I mean, I think that's quite normal, right? Just, I think maybe when the child's really small, you have to worry, then maybe worry about not rolling in your sleep, because that could be quite dangerous. But yeah, I don't think that's. I think when I was a kid, I used to sleep in my parents' bed quite a lot.
not in the room, which makes it feel unsafe. Co-sleeping is literally the best option for sleeping with your baby. My dad built this really clever little half crib that he put next to the bed with a mattress and made it level to the bed.
Ah,
So I could be in the bed co-sleeping there at the
that's
same
really
time as my
cool.
mom was in the bed. Co-sleeping shouldn't be a term, I don't think. It shouldn't be a trend. It shouldn't be an idea. It should just be the most common way for sleeping with your baby. Another thing that is common in Sweden but isn't very common abroad is that both men and women call themselves feminists. In Sweden, people are generally more educated
Okay,
about feminism than in other countries, and I really like that we
where gender equality is closer to a reality. 10 countries scoring highest in the global gender gap index. Okay, Iceland is number 1, Finland's number 2, Norway's number 3, Sweden's number 4, Denmark's number 5. Wow, where is the UK? Are we not there? So gender equality, global gender gap. I wonder what's the criteria to rank in this list, like rank highly in this list. I'd like to know what the criteria is.
use the word more casually and without so much attachment to it that comes from other countries. A weird thing about Sweden that I thought was a bit very quite strange is that our school is a lot easier than any other school in the world. Now, I don't know
What? What do you mean? Your school is easier? Damn, I should have gone to school in Sweden.
exactly how accurate this is, but I know that in general in Sweden we are very educated. However, our school, especially I think middle school and preschool, is a lot easier than, for example, in England or in New Zealand.
What? That's not fair.
We have way less assignments, way less homework, but somehow it still works. Unfortunately, this trend is changing and we're becoming a bit more like the rest of the world. But
Okay.
I really think homework is
But when I graduated, it would have been just like that then, like easier.
ridiculous and we shouldn't have it. So that's that. One weird thing we do in Sweden, but I think we shouldn't do, so disregard this one, is that we don't really date. Although I'm Swedish, I've
What? Let me know in the comment section below if you're from Sweden. You guys don't date.
never dated a Swedish guy because I think I've only have 2 Swedish guys ever hit on me in my entire life. But in general, we don't really date. We don't really have a period of dating where you can see other people.
So what do? Do you just like get married? Do you just like meet up with someone you like and be like, should we get married? Yeah, let's get married. Should we have kids? Yeah, some kids. How do you, I don't know, you need to date, right? I would have thought you'd need to date in order to get to know someone. That's how you get to know someone. Or you just friends. Is that you don't class it as dating. It's just like, I've made a friend and then yeah, because if I'm honest, like you need to be friends with somebody before you can, yeah, before you get into a relationship. Friendship is a big part of a relationship. So maybe that's what you guys do.
Or normally you're just sort of not together and then you're sort of together. Dating in Sweden is very weird. That is why I've been so unsuccessful at it. And yeah, I find it a bit uncomfortable. And I think Sweden, in fact, should adopt how people date in other countries because I think it makes way more sense and it's a much more adult way of dating.
Let me know in the comment section what she means by that. I'm confused. She said it's very awkward to date in Sweden. Swedish people don't date. Do you date? Let me know in the comment section because maybe this is her experience. But I find that is weird. It is 19 weird things which people do. Yeah. So yeah, let me know in the comment section if you guys don't date. Let me know.
Dating. Something we do in Sweden is that we learn English very early. This also makes so much sense.
I could
It's
hear
easier
that.
to learn a
Great
language when
English.
you're young. And voila, most people speak English, which is such a useful skill to have if you want to live in another country or have any job where you don't work in Sweden. All right, so we're going even more political. Time for religion. One thing we don't do in Sweden is we're not really religious or go to church, even though Wikipedia might say otherwise. So this has changed since then, but when I grew up and my entire generation, we couldn't choose to be enrolled in the Swedish church system. That just happened automatically when we were born, no matter if we were baptized or not. We just went straight into the Swedish church system, which is also the system you have to be in if you want to be buried in a churchyard or if you want to be married in a church, if you want to get baptized in a church, etc., etc. So this is a quite fun fact compared to other countries, because if you look at Wikipedia, it says most Swedish people are religious, but that's simply because we are enrolled in church. Now say
so there's automatically your part. As soon as you're born, you are sworn in as a Christian. That's really wrong, really. You shouldn't. It's quite a weird concept, isn't it? A baby that hasn't even formed its own opinions, it doesn't know about the world, brain hasn't developed yet. They're just automatically a Christian without any choice. Yeah, I'm glad that's changing.
Say what you want about religion, but I, for one, am a person who thinks that we should practice what we preach. And since most people have lots of sex before marriage, drink a ridiculous amount of alcohol, and do all other sorts of gluttonous things, I think it makes complete sense that most people don't go to church. I remember going to church in kindergarten for our summer ending, and I remember my priest had leather pants and played a rock and roll guitar, which we all thought was very, very fun.
That's quite cool.
We are a land of wonderful and quirky, weird, strange traditions. In Sweden, we have something called jantelagen, which practically means be humble, but also never talk well about yourself. So there are pros and cons about this.
Be humble and never talk well about yourself. I think that's quite similar to... I'm seeing a lot of parallels, like quite a lot of similarities between Sweden and the UK, because that's another thing. We don't have a word for it, but being humble and not bragging about what you have and not being over proud, like, you know what I mean? We're not really like, we're Americans. Americans very much are very proud of what they have, and they'll tell you they have it and they'll show it, and very, very exaggerated. What's the word I'm looking for? Let me know in the comment section what word I'm looking for. But it's very confident, and they are very outspoken, and yeah, British people are a bit more demure and a bit quieter and more humble.
Law is an unwritten law. But one of the good things about it is that Swedish people are in general very comfortable and quiet, or maybe better is to say not loud people. So it's very nice to be around Swedish people. No one ever yells, no one ever tries to really be the center of attention, no one really, speaks really loudly. One of my favorite things we do in Sweden, which does not work in English, is that we don't really have a word for please. Now you can use snälla, which means like most kindly, or can you kindly, or you can use tack, which means thank you, but we don't really have a word for please. I love learning languages because this is those little parts about a language and a culture that you won't really learn unless you know the language. So I love speaking English. I love using the word please, but I also love speaking Swedish and being able to sneak in a tack or a snälla where Swedish people normally don't, and sound like the most friendly and polite person in the world. So it's a win-win. So, okay, my friends, I did not think we'd go this political. I have written this video down. It's very funny because when I translate these very regular Swedish ideas to English, they suddenly become so much more political. Swedish people are in generally extremely nice, and it's such a nice culture to live in, and I think that's why so many people move back to Sweden when they want to have a family, because it's such a safe and reasonable and wholesome place for kids to grow up. And part of that is because these lovely and quirky ideas that we have. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I had so much fun speaking about my Swedish traditions, especially since I'm not in Sweden anymore. It makes me so happy to be able to share something of how I grew up with the rest of the world, especially the useful parts. Let me know in the comments below if you have any specific traditions to your home country that you think are really valuable for everyone. And like this video if you like this type of content, and because it really helps the channel. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Hej då!
See you later. That was a very good video. I think there's a lot of similarities. I think there's a few things I'm a bit like, what? Like the dating thing. That's a bit weird. You guys don't date? Let me know in the comment section. But yeah, for the most part, we do a lot of, and the duvet, the 2 separate duvets, that's a bit weird. Is that a Swedish thing as well? Because obviously she's Swedish, but I mean, do all Swedish people do that? I don't know. But that was really good. That was very interesting. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, I will see you guys later.